Rome could defeat Spartacus with a sword, but it could not defeat the idea he created. Spartacus was not born a legend. He was born into a world where freedom could be taken like property. He was a Thracian, likely a soldier before he became a slave. And that matters because soldiers understand discipline and pain. Somewhere along the way he was captured, sold, and dragged into the Roman system that turned humans into tools. In Capua, he was forced into a gladiator school, a place where men trained to die for entertainment. Gladiators were expensive, so they were fed, trained, and controlled, but they were still prisoners behind bars. Rome called it sport, but beneath the cheers, it was organized violence, designed to remind everyone who held power. Spartacus watched that world from the inside, learning how Romans fought, how they celebrated, and how they underestimated people they called lesser. Then came the spark. In 73 BCE, Spartacus and a small group of gladiators planned an escape. They did not have an army. They had kitchen knives, courage, and desperation. They broke out, seized real weapons, and fled to Mount Vesuvius, choosing high ground like men who knew war. Rome's first response was arrogant, because Rome assumed the rebels were just criminals who would collapse quickly. A Roman force surrounded Vesuvius and believed the trap was perfect. Spartacus did something unexpected. He used vines as ropes, climbed down a steep side of the mountain at night, and attacked from behind. The Roman camp panicked, and the easy capture became a humiliating defeat. That victory changed everything, because victory attracts people like fire attracts the cold. Slaves began to run to Spartacus, not because they loved him personally, but because he represented the possibility of life outside chains. Soon the rebels were no longer dozens, they were thousands. And thousands can become an army if they believe they have nothing left to lose. Spartacus also faced a problem most rebels never solve: discipline. A crowd can riot, but a crowd cannot win wars without structure. Spartacus began shaping the rebels into a fighting force, using experience, fear, and hope to keep them together. He also had leaders around him, including Crassus. And leadership inside a rebellion can be both strength and danger. The rebels moved through Italy, taking supplies, freeing more people, and growing like a storm. Rome was now forced to admit this was not a small escape. It was a war. The Senate sent larger armies, and commanders expected the rebels to break under pressure. Instead, Spartacus kept winning. Said speed surprise and ruthless targeting, and Roman units that expected easy glory found embarrassment. Each Roman defeat was more than military loss. It was psychological damage, because Rome's power depended on the belief that Rome could not be challenged. Now, peasants whispered, slaves listened, and Rome's elites felt fear creep into places where it had not lived for centuries. But inside the rebel camp, not everyone wanted the same future. Some wanted to escape Italy and go home across the Alps, because survival, not revolution, was the goal. Others wanted to stay, raid, and punish Rome, because rage is also a compass. Spartacus appears to have wanted to leave Italy at some point, because leaving would reduce the chance of total annihilation. He marched north, and the Alps were closer than ever. Then, something changed. Whether it was internal pressure, overconfidence, or division, the rebels turned back south. Turning back was the moment the war began to close like a trap. Rome finally chose a commander who treated Spartacus as a real threat. That man was Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of the richest Romans alive, and a man hungry for glory. Crassus understood that defeating Spartacus required discipline and terror. He punished his own troops harshly to restore fear and order, because fear can be used like a weapon on both sides. Crassus built fortifications, cut off movement, and tried to squeeze the rebel army into exhaustion. Spartacus tried to escape by negotiating ships to cross to Sicily, where another slave uprising might ignite. But the plan failed, and failure in war is often fatal because it steals time. Now the rebels were trapped in the south, low on supplies, facing Roman walls and Roman patience. Spartacus broke through one blockade, but every breakout made the rebels weaker and Rome more determined. Meanwhile, Pompey returned from Spain, and another Roman force approached, tightening the circle. Crassus wanted the victory before Pompey arrived, because in Rome, even triumphs were competitions. Spartacus understood that politics was closing in, and he chose the only option left: battle. In 71 BCE, the final clash came, and the rebels fought, knowing the price of defeat. Spartacus is said to have fought at the front, refusing to run, trying to reach Crassus, like a man aiming at the heart of the machine. He was killed in the chaos, and his body was never clearly identified, which turned him into a symbol even in death. Rome won with steel, but it answered fear with cruelty. Thousands of captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way, a long road of death meant to terrify anyone who dreamed of rebellion. It was propaganda made of bodies, because Rome wanted the idea to die as well as the men, but the idea did not die. Spartacus became proof that Rome's system had cracks, and that slaves were not naturally obedient. They were forced into silence. Rome had to reform how it managed slavery and security, because the rebellion revealed how close terror could come to the heart of power. Spartacus also became a mirror for later generations. To some, he was a hero of freedom. To others, he was a warning of chaos. But either way, he could not be erased, because stories survive where chains fail. His rebellion did not end slavery, but it exposed slavery's violence in the clearest language possible: war. It also showed that oppressed people can learn fast, fight hard, and build armies out of nothing but desperation. And it showed Rome something it hated to admit. Its greatness depended on suffering it tried to keep invisible. That is why Rome could kill Spartacus, but could not kill the idea of Spartacus, because an idea is harder than iron. And if you want more stories like this, like the video and subscribe to History Refuge.